Now, US President Donald Trump announced a finalized trade deal with India following a call with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The agreement, reached after months of talks and amid US tariffs of up to 50% on Indian exports, reduces US tariffs on Indian goods to 18% effective immediately. Trump posted on Truth Social that India has agreed to halt Russian oil imports, replacing them with more from the US and potentially Venezuela, and commit to buying over $500 billion in US energy, technology, agriculture, coal and other products. He claimed India would also drop tariffs and non-tariff barriers on US goods to zero, helping end the Ukraine war and boost bilateral ties. Modi confirmed on X that tariffs on made-in-India products would fall to 18%, thanking Trump and highlighting opportunities for the world's two largest democracies. The deal follows India's recent major trade agreement with the EU and comes as the US remains India's top single country trading partner. Let's take a look at the timeline of the US-India trade talks. Let me show you that, viewers. Now, on the 14th of February, 2025, let's look at that, viewers. PM Modi and Trump set $500 billion India-US trade target 2030. On the 3rd to the 8th March 2025, Piyush Goyal visits United States for trade discussions. On the 24th of March 2025, senior US trade officials Brendan Lynch visits India. On the 2nd of April, viewers. Now, Trump imposes tariffs on all trading partners, including 26% on India. India, in an official response on the 3rd of April, says it is in touch. All right, on the 5th of April, Trump speaks to representatives from India to open talks on trade deals. 10th of April 2025, US suspends additional 26% tariff on India for 90 days. On the 11th of April, Piyush Goyal says India never negotiates at gunpoint. On the 21st to the 24th April, US Vice President J.D. Vance visits India. And on the 23rd of April, India's Commerce Ministry team to visit Washington, D.C. for negotiations. On the 5th of June, US officials reach India to discuss a bilateral trade agreement. And of course, 26th of June of last year, viewers, Indian delegation in Washington as talks enter 7th consecutive day. On the 27th of August, US raises tariffs on many Indian exports to approximately 50%. That's on the 27th of August. And on the 11th of September, India's Commerce Minister says the first tranche of the trade deal is expected by November 2025. Now, December 2025 is what we're talking about. Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agrawal, first framework segment of the trade deal ready, though no signing date is set yet, is what he says. And January 9, 2026. Now, US Commerce Secretary Latne claims that the trade deal didn't happen because PM Modi did not call Trump. And January 12, US Ambassador to India Sergio Gore set to resume bilateral talks on January 13, 2026. So that happens. Now, on January 13, President Donald Trump announces 25% tariffs on Iran's trade partners. So that's the announcement right there that we just showed you. And the External Affairs Minister on January 14, Jaishankar and Marco Rubio discussed cooperation trade. So that's another important meeting. And on February the 2nd, Trump announces slashing of reciprocal tariffs from 25% to 18% after a phone call with Prime Minister Modi. All right, viewers. So this, of course, then, this is the whole trajectory of the events that followed, and we've gotten you every detail. Now, I have my guest joining me on the broadcast. I have with me Mr. Bharat Barai. He's a foreign affairs expert and chairman of the US-India Community Foundation, and he's joining me live from Chicago in the US. Now, I want to begin, of course, with your opening comments. Mr. Barai, am I audible to you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, please go on.
So this is an excellent deal for both India as well as United States. There were trade frictions going on about what can be imported, how much duty to impose, and that was leading to other bad things, restriction on visas for the students, H-1B visa conversion, the green card issuance, the social media check on all those who were applying for visa. So the number of people coming from India to United States had gone down. In fact, many Indian Americans living in USA, and I should remind that there are 5.5 million Indian Americans living in USA, which makes the largest Indian diaspora in the world. So we were also feeling some feeling where people were telling us, why doesn't India stop importing oil from Russia? Things like that. Even some of the students in the high school, our children, they were feeling this. So this will remove a big deterrence, big friction between United States and India, and it will also restore friendly relationship between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, though both of them have called each other great friends, but there was no question there was a distance between two of them, which was not seen in January of last year when Prime Minister Modi was invited to visit the United States. I think it will boost India's exports further, though almost half the exports which were related to iPhone and electronics were not subject to the duty, but many of the jobs that depended on leather, textile, seafood, those things were affected. So a lot of workers who were getting laid off or not getting enough of work, now they will be able to boost their export to the United States. And we will be able, in India, will be able to import the energy from Venezuela, from United States. I mean, as a matter of principle, it was too much of dependence of India on one country, whether it is Russia or Saudi Arabia or Iran or Iraq or Kuwait, that we were importing almost 35% of oil from Russia. I mean, as a good business person, you should not be relying on any supply chain more than 10% or so of your requirement. So it is very wise for India to reduce its oil import from any country to no more than 10%. And I think that will also satisfy the United States that we are not importing too much of Russian oil and trying to fund their war machine for Ukraine. And I can tell you from USA that there is quite a bit of resentment against Russia because so many civilian targets are being attacked in Ukraine. Just last week, a bus carrying the miners was bombed and 12 miners died. There have been so many cases where children in the school or women who are in the shopping centers have been affected. So what Russia is doing in Ukraine is very much despised in the United States. I just want to convey that from here.
All right. I also now want to go across to Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, is a former diplomat. Ambassador Gupta, now what is the India-US trade agreement signal about the current state of bilateral diplomacy, especially after periods of tension over tariffs and energy policy?
this deal is certainly a good development. It's a very good omen for the India-US relations because in the last, let's say, more than a year, the relationship was going south, and it was not good for both India as well as US. Our trade was getting affected. Our relations in political, military, and economic and other fields were getting affected. The rupee was had come under a lot of strain. Our exports were reduced, and some purchases were also affected. So I hope that with the conclusion of this deal, the relationship between the two countries will start improving. But then one will have to work very hard on other issues because I do not see any automaticity between this deal and improvement of relations in other fields. President Trump is someone, who sort of considers each issue on its merit, and he's always looking at, in economic terms, as to what the US is getting out from that particular issue. And so one will have to really work on every other issue very, very diligently and try to, work out a solution which is fair to both.
All right, I want to now go across to Ms. Yamini Agarwal. She's a Vice Chairperson of Finance, Indian Institute of Finance. Now, Ms. Agarwal, I want to ask you, could lowering tariffs and non-tariff barriers to zero on US goods expose domestic industries to competitive pressures? And if so, which sectors are most at risk?
Well, we need to understand what we are exporting and importing there. This is a very welcome step that has been taken today and announced. It does bring us to some amount of certainty in terms of the trade deal. What's essential is to understand that this goes in the interest of the US because most of our exports are ones that are inelastic in nature. As far as our imports are concerned, US imports from the US primarily consists of very high value goods, many as a part of the defense equipments or oil now or the other aspects that are there. When we talk about the trade deal, it's essential to understand that as Trump has been saying about trade parity, India would also look at trade parity and not bring about all the goods at the same level at which is maybe desired by the United States at zero duties. But yes, many of the items which are of a very high-end value which we import from the US will not immediately affect the competitive nature of our industries because we may not be producing the similar set of goods in the similar range in which the US produces. The second aspect which is important is many of our goods which are consumed domestically do have the advantage of our own market and the benefit of its familiarity and let's say our own cultural backgrounds, which does not affect the competitive markets, including many of the items which may be considered on a high end of technology or a very high value oriented goods. So there is a lot of indigenization that has happened. The industry has been extremely competitive. Technologically, also the present budget offers a lot of exemptions in the capital equipments which can be brought in imports. So there would be a lot of competitiveness, which would be good and strengthen both the economy's trade as well as other aspects of the economic dealing.
Right. I want to now go across to Professor Arvind Singh Tejawat. He's an international affairs expert. Professor Tejawat, how do you see this deal?
Thank you very much, Medha. If I'm not wrong, Medha is the anchor.
Vaishali. This is Vaishali.
Vaishali, oh, Vaishali, right.
Yes, yes.
I cannot see you, that's the reason. So thank you very much, Vaishali. But I must say that I'm a little bit disappointed by this such an agreement, such an unequal agreement. The reason behind it, it's just a cut, the 7% cutting in a tariff. Means the US is imposing 25% tariff, and now it has deducted up to the 18%. And in turn, the India is imposing the 0% tariff. Do you think that this one is a equal agreement? Never ever. And if the India is trying to make happy to the President Trump in the sense the people who are making the policies, and President Trump is only a face. So in that case, only the upper middle class of India might be benefited, but that is no assurance, because the visa, the J1 visa, there is no certain assurance about that particular visas and the frequent a kind of shifting, the students shifting from here to there. And in turn, we are losing a cheaper rate petroleum from the Russia. At the same time, we are losing the strategic freedom. So India is never ever benefited by, and it's really too early that our government representatives like the Home Minister, Foreign Ministers, and even a Prime Minister, by their tweets, on assurance, by the tweets of President Trump only, they are celebrating such a deal, which is not, I suppose this one is too early. And India assured what the President Trump has written in his tweet, that the India assured us to give the $500 billion deal. Means India will spend $500 billion to buy the technologies and some goods from the United States. So I don't find anything positive in this deal. And I suppose this is the right time to go for the internal reforms, the internal economic reforms, so India can bargain in a more strong way what exactly the China is doing at the moment. But at the same time, India is need to rethink and revisit the policy towards the United States. Over to you, Vaishali.